The truth they never tell you about Ukrainian beauty. Every man who visits Ukraine comes back changed. Not because of what he expected to find, but because of what he never imagined existed. The streets of this Eastern European nation hold secrets that travel guides deliberately skip over. And once you understand why, everything you thought you knew about European culture gets turned upside down. This isn't another romanticized travel story. This is the raw reality that locals live every single day. Walk through any Ukrainian city at 8 in the morning. While the rest of Europe shuffles to work in comfortable sneakers and casual wear, Ukrainian women navigate cobblestone streets in heels that would make most Western women call a taxi. This isn't a special occasion. This is Tuesday. The dedication to appearance here operates on a completely different frequency than what you'll find in Paris, London, or Rome. But here's what nobody tells you. This isn't about vanity. It's about something much deeper, something rooted in survival and pride that goes back generations. And understanding this reveals everything about Ukrainian culture that outsiders constantly misinterpret. Where Europe meets something entirely different, Ukraine sits at one of the most fascinating crossroads on Earth. Bordered by 7 countries, this massive nation of over 600,000 square kilometers stretches from the Carpathian Mountains in the west to the industrial heartlands near the Russian border in the east. Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, and Moldova frame the western edges. Belarus sits to the north. Each border tells a different story of invasion, alliance, trade, and cultural exchange that shaped the Ukrainian identity into something absolutely unique. But here's where it gets interesting. Most people think Ukraine is just another Eastern European country, a simple extension of Russian culture. Dead wrong. Ukraine's position made it the battleground for empires. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Turks, and later the Soviet Union all left their fingerprints here. The result? A culture that absorbed elements from everywhere but remained defiantly, unmistakably Ukrainian. The language, though Slavic, carries words borrowed from Turkish, German, and Polish. The food combines influences that shouldn't work together but somehow create perfection on a plate. The cities that refuse to be forgotten. Kiev, the capital, sits majestically on the Dnieper River and claims to be older than Moscow by several centuries. The golden domes of its churches catch sunlight in ways that make even skeptics reach for their cameras. But Kiev isn't frozen in history. Underground, one of the deepest metro systems in the world moves millions daily through stations built like marble palaces. Above ground, ancient monasteries stand next to modern tech hubs where some of Europe's best software engineers write code that powers apps you probably use every day. Then there's Lviv in the west. If Kiev is Ukraine's ancient heart, Lviv is its European soul. Coffee culture here rivals Vienna. The architecture screams Austro-Hungarian elegance. Cobblestone squares host more festivals per year than most European capitals. But don't mistake charm for softness. Lviv was where Ukrainian independence movements burned brightest, where people fought hardest to preserve their language and traditions when forces tried to erase them. The cafes might serve perfect espresso, but conversations over those tiny cups shaped revolution. Odessa on the Black Sea coast operates by entirely different rules. This port city built its reputation on trade, diversity, and a slightly dangerous edge that never quite disappeared. The Potemkin stairs descend toward the sea like a grand theatrical entrance. Beaches fill with summer crowds that party until sunrise. But Odessa's real character shows in its humor. Ode sands have a reputation across the former Soviet Union for quick wit and clever schemes. An Odesan joke can make you laugh and think for days afterward. What the landscape hides. Most visitors never see Ukraine's true geography. They land in cities and miss the steppe that stretches endlessly toward horizons that seem impossibly far. This flat grassland once supported nomadic tribes and their horses. Later it became the breadbasket that fed empires. The soil here, called Chernozem or Black Earth, is so rich that farmers in other countries literally import it. During harvest season, fields of sunflowers and wheat create views that photographers spend entire careers trying to capture properly. But head west and everything changes. The Carpathian Mountains rise like a completely different country dropped into Ukraine's corner. Villages here preserve wooden churches that UNESCO protects as World Heritage Sites. Local traditions survived here when lowland areas faced forced cultural changes. Hutzels, the mountain people, maintain crafts and customs that trace back centuries. Their embroidery patterns carry meanings most modern Ukrainians have forgotten. And the mountains themselves hide forests so dense that legends of mystical creatures still circulate among villagers who swear their grandparents saw things that science can't explain. The part everyone gets wrong about Ukrainian women. Here's what actually happens in Ukraine that created the phenomenon everyone notices but few understand. Ukrainian women don't wake up naturally looking like supermodels. They work at it with discipline that would impress Olympic athletes. But this isn't shallow vanity or desperation to attract men. This cultural armor developed through brutal history. When your country spent centuries being invaded, occupied, and told your culture didn't matter, how do you fight back? You refuse to let them break your spirit. You dress impeccably. You walk with your head high. You show the world that no amount of hardship can take away your dignity. 3 generations of Soviet rule tried to make everyone look the same, dress the same, think the same. Ukrainian women responded by becoming even more feminine, more stylish, more determined to stand out. After independence in 1991, this instinct only intensified. Every woman carefully choosing her outfit, doing her makeup, styling her hair isn't performing for male attention. She's making a statement about refusing to disappear into drab conformity. She's honoring grandmothers who maintained grace through famines and wars. She's showing daughters that external circumstances don't dictate your internal pride. But there's a deeper layer nobody discusses. Ukrainian society places enormous pressure on women to excel at everything simultaneously. Be beautiful but also educated. Be feminine but also capable of handling any crisis. Raise perfect children. Maintain an immaculate home. Advance your career. And never let anyone see you struggle. This creates women who appear superhuman but often carry stress that Western cultures spread across extended family and social services. The strength is real, but it comes at a cost that visitors sipping coffee at sidewalk cafes rarely consider. Food, festivals, and the soul of a nation. Ukrainian cuisine tells stories that history books skip. Borscht, the beet soup recognized globally, varies dramatically by region. Eastern versions lean toward Russian influences with more meat. Western variations show Polish touches with added beans. The constant, every grandmother insists her recipe is the only authentic one, and every family gathering involves intense debates about proper techniques. This isn't about soup. It's about identity, about maintaining connection to ancestors through taste and tradition. Then there's the bread. Ukrainians treat bread with reverence that seems excessive until you learn the history. Famines deliberately engineered by Stalin in the 1930s killed millions. Holodomor, the terror famine, left scars so deep that wasting bread even today feels like disrespecting the dead. When Ukrainians offer you bread and salt at their doorstep, they're sharing their most sacred symbols of survival and hospitality. Refuse and you've insulted not just your host but generations of suffering that bread represents. Easter here becomes a competitive art form. Women spend days decorating eggs with intricate wax designs that require steady hands and endless patience. Pysanky eggs carry symbols and patterns where colors and shapes communicate prayers and wishes. Churches fill beyond capacity for services that last hours. Afterward, entire communities gather for meals where tables bend under the weight of dishes, prepared from recipes passed down through centuries. This isn't religious performance. This collective memory made edible, identity served on plates. The underground reality nobody mentions. Ukraine's economy operates on 2 levels. The official one that tourists see and the informal one that actually runs daily life. Salaries that look impossibly low on paper somehow support families because extended networks share resources in ways that mystify outsiders. A woman might officially work as a teacher earning $300 monthly but supplements through tutoring, helps her sister's business with accounting, receives vegetables from village relatives, and participates in elaborate exchange systems where money rarely changes hands but everyone's needs get met. This shadow economy isn't criminal. its survival strategy perfected over decades when official systems couldn't be trusted. Soviet rule taught people that governments lie, bureaucrats steal, and only family and close friends merit trust. Independence didn't erase these lessons. If anything, chaotic transitions in the 1990s reinforced them. Modern Ukraine struggles between Western aspirations for transparency and ingrained habits of operating through personal connections where a phone call to the right person accomplishes more than any official paperwork. Why Ukrainian hospitality overwhelms visitors. Invite yourself into a Ukrainian home and prepare for generosity that borders on aggressive. The table will overflow with more food than 10 people could consume. Your host will insist you eat more even when you're visibly uncomfortable. Refuse anything and you'll face offended expressions and persistent pressure. This isn't about forcing you. It's about demonstrating that despite everything, despite wars and poverty and uncertainty, they can still provide abundance. They can still show you that Ukrainian spirit remains unbroken. This hospitality carries a flip side that confuses many foreigners. On the street, Ukrainians often appear cold, unsmiling, reserved to the point of seeming rude. Strangers don't smile at each other. Customer service rarely includes cheerful pleasantries. But this isn't hostility. It's cultural code. Smiling without reason signals foolishness or manipulation. Genuine warmth gets reserved for people who've earned trust. Once you cross that threshold from stranger to guest, the transformation stuns visitors expecting continued coldness. Suddenly you're family. Your problems become their problems. They'll move mountains to help you, offended if you suggest their efforts are too much. The creative spirit that built legends. Ukraine's artistic traditions run so deep that neighboring cultures still copy what Ukrainians invented centuries ago. Those colorful floral embroidery patterns covering traditional clothing? Each region developed distinct styles where colors and symbols identified not just location but family lineage. Vyshyvanka shirts became national symbols, worn by presidents and protesters alike as declarations of cultural survival. Modern designers now incorporate these ancient patterns into high fashion, selling Ukrainian heritage to runways in Milan and Paris. Music here tells a similar story. Bandura, a traditional stringed instrument, nearly went extinct under Soviet rule because authorities recognized how songs preserved forbidden history and nationalist sentiment. Musicians risked imprisonment to keep traditions alive, teaching students in secret. After independence, Bandura experienced explosive revival. Today's performers blend classical techniques with modern genres, creating sounds that honor ancestors while claiming space in contemporary culture. Young people pack concerts where ancient instruments meet electronic beats, proving tradition doesn't require staying frozen in the past. Where Ukraine stands in European consciousness. Ask most Europeans about Ukraine and watch confusion cloud their faces. They know it exists. They've seen headlines, but actual knowledge remains frustratingly shallow. Many still confuse Ukrainian language with Russian, unable to distinguish cultures that fought centuries to remain separate. This ignorance frustrates Ukrainians who worked desperately hard to maintain distinct identity against forces trying to erase them. They study multiple languages, consume global culture, build tech companies that compete internationally. Yet somehow they remain invisible in mainstream European consciousness, known more for geopolitical tensions than cultural achievements. But here's the secret. Ukrainians stopped waiting for European validation. They're building something that doesn't need external approval. Tech startups in Kyiv develop software used worldwide. Fashion designers create looks that celebrities wear without knowing Ukrainian origin. Musicians score films, write hits, and tour globally.
Agricultura, l'innovation feed millions.
Ukraine isn't asking permission to join the world stage. Ukrainians are already there, succeeding quietly while the world argues about where Ukraine fits in outdated mental maps. The question nobody answers honestly. So what don't they want you to discover? It's not some secret about Ukrainian women being universally stunning, though beauty here certainly strikes visitors. It's that Ukraine challenges everything comfortable narratives tell you about Europe, development, and progress. It reveals that resilience and dignity don't require wealthy economies. That culture survives despite concentrated efforts to destroy it. that people maintain warmth and generosity through circumstances that would break softer societies. Ukrainian women specifically represent something that makes certain narratives uncomfortable. They prove that femininity and strength aren't opposites, that education and beauty coexist naturally, that women can honor tradition while building modern careers, that maintaining appearance doesn't signal shallow priorities but rather deep cultural values about self-respect. This challenges both conservative views that want women domestic and submissive, and progressive views that sometimes treat femininity as weakness. Ukrainian women simply refuse to fit anyone's comfortable categories, and that makes them impossible to package into simple stories. Your turn to join this conversation. Where are you watching this from right now? Drop your city and country in the comments because knowing our global audience helps us create better content for you. What surprised you most about Ukraine? What do you want to learn more about? Your thoughts matter here. If this video changed how you think about Ukraine or Eastern Europe, smash that like button. It costs you nothing but helps us tremendously by telling the algorithm to share this with more curious minds like yours. Hit the hype button too. Seriously, these actions make real difference for independent creators trying to bring you perspectives mainstream travel content ignores. Thank you genuinely for that support. And don't stop here. Check out the videos we've suggested on your screen because each one reveals something fascinating about places and cultures that deserve your attention. See you in the next one.